Is the U.S. in any way exaggerating or misleading the American public in regard to the potential threat posed by Iraq?
Is the U.S. government, you mean the senior members of the administration? Not to my knowledge. And if I knew of an instance, I would certainly correct it.
He gives a talk where he talks about how the Union might not survive. Like, that was the premise of and he points to Abraham Lincoln. There was a time in our life when the Union wasn't certain. And I'm thinking to myself, is he saying that the Iraq War is the same thing as the U.S. Civil War? I'm thinking the guy's crazy. And he goes, and my administration has an agenda for peace. And he looked right at me, and like my mouth dropped open. And I was just like you just did, right? And I was like, he knows I can tell he's lying. I just kind of stood there. He finishes his talk, and they're like, oh, let's have a picture by the HMS Resolute. So we all get behind the desk, and I stand right next to him with my mouth kind of like overlapping his ear behind his shoulder kind of thing. And I've been doing a television series in Canada, and they actually worked out my schedule so I could fly back and do this thing. And the Canadians, who were not so happy about the Iraq adventure, were like, you tell that man we don't want him to do this. You tell him not to do this. And the director said, I worked around the schedule for you. It took me a few hours, and it affected things. Your obligation to me for helping you go be there is remember that evil is what happens when good men do nothing. So I'm standing there the whole time. I'm thinking, like, I'm a good man. I have to do something. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I whisper in his ear. I didn't whisper, but I said in his ear, I said, Mr. President, I'm working with some good Canadians who are very worried. I look forward to going back there tomorrow and telling him what you said here today about having an agenda for peace. And I said it hard. And he snapped his head around. He looked me right in the eye, and he goes, I am down on bended knee every day praying for it. And I said, I believe you. It was powerful, man. It was powerful. So, like,
when he snapped his head around, it wasn't he was agreeing with you? He liked what you just said?
He was pissed. He knew exactly what I was saying. I was saying, you don't care about peace. You haven't sent an envoy. You're not trying to get Saddam out of there peacefully. You want to fight. You have 150,000 people in Qatar, and you want to fight. And I know you want to fight, and your vice president wants to fight, and Halliburton's going to make $1 trillion, and like, this is not right. You have not done everything. If presidents say that it's a last resort, it should be a last resort. And in my little subtle thing, I was saying this isn't a last resort, and you're not doing everything you should be doing. And he snapped his head around. He's like, you little fucker, I am doing everything I can be doing. And I'm like, oh my God. And I swear, I thought all the way back, my head is exploding like, okay, so if he believes what he believes, what does that mean? I was questioning his soul. I was God standing in judgment of a man at that moment, and he was like, "I'm doing the right thing, and how dare you?"
Mr. Bush, when are you going to apologize for the million Iraqis that are dead because you lied? You lied about weapons of mass destruction. You lied about connections to 9/11. You lied about Iraq being a threat. You sent me to Iraq. You sent me to Iraq in 2003. My friends are dead. Joshua Castile. You killed people. You lied. You lied about WMD. 1 million Iraqis are dead because you lied. My friends are dead because you lied. You need to apologize. Apologize.
You talked about how just sick you felt to your stomach when you found out there were no weapons of mass destruction. Can you bring me to that moment? Did someone walk in and say, we've stopped looking, they're not there? Who was it? How did that happen?
It just kind of was, it evolved. The fact that there wasn't weapons evolved. I mean, I was, when we first got in there and started looking around and didn't find anything, you get that kind of sinking feeling that, I felt terrible about it. And on the other hand, those reports did point out that Saddam Hussein was very dangerous, that he had the capacity to make weapons, and I'm convinced that if he were in power today, the world would be a lot worse off.
My question is, when you look at those things about Abu Ghraib, about the WMD, it seems as though no one ever paid for that. We went to war largely on that basis. The fact of the matter is that we sent young men and women there who were killed, and no one ever... You never said, you're responsible for this, you're out. And so the American people, I think, began to kind of lose confidence in their government.
I can see that. First of all, I was responsible. And the 2004 campaign was partially about that responsibility. But, I wish we'd have found weapons of mass destruction. However, that doesn't make the cause a lost cause. But I think somebody's going to look back someday and say, thank goodness the United States believed in the universality of freedom and liberated 25 million people and gave the Iraqis a chance to have their own free society.